So today we're just kind of in a summer kind of mode, and so we're not in a particular series. So we've been doing kind of one-off kind of messages, but the theme has been kind of like about us, about being a community, being a family. When I say us, I just don't mean us in these walls, but I mean us as a people that we need to learn to, right? Don't you think? We don't need to continue to learn how to be together and how to live in community, and what has to do with that is love. So today, the springboard text for us today is 1 Corinthians 16, 13, and 14. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be men of courage, be strong, do everything in love. Do everything in love. A minister tells a story about a wife who came into his office one day and said, I'm in this marriage that I absolutely can't stand. I'm full of hatred towards my husband. I don't just want to get rid of him. I want to punish him. I want to seek some revenge on him, to hurt him as much as I can. And the minister said, really? So the minister said, okay, well, I have an idea for you that you could do, and here's what you do. I want you to go home and pretend, do your best job as if you love him. And what I want you to do is I want you to praise him for every decent thing, every decent trait that he has. Go out of your way to be kind and considerate, compassionate, and try to meet his needs. After you've convinced him of your undying love, right? You get the idea? And after he's so convinced, after a month or 2 months of living like this, and then you lower the boom on him and you say, I want out, I want a divorce, and he will be devastated. So 2 months went by and the minister didn't hear from her, so he called her up and he said, so, what's going on? Are you ready to go through with the divorce? And she said, Divorce. Never. She said, I discovered that I really love him. And her actions had changed her feelings towards him. Motion results in emotion. The ability to love is established not so much by fervent promise, but as repeated deeds. C.S. Lewis said it like this in his book, Mere Christianity. Do not waste your time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did. As soon as we do this, we find one of the great secrets of life. When you are behaving as if you love someone, you will presently come to love him. If you injure someone you dislike, you will find yourself disliking him more. If you do him a good turn, you will find yourself disliking him less. So look, today's message comes out of probably the most famous chapter in all the Bible. How many of you may not be able to quote it, but how many have heard before, read somewhere, the chapter 1 Corinthians 13? Raise your hand. 1 Corinthians 13. Sure. Where have you heard it? At a wedding, of course. Well, look. Okay, so we understand that to grasp something, you can't just lift it off the page and put it in any context that you want. There's a context in which that chapter sits. So that chapter, 1 Corinthians 13, sits in this letter to the Corinthians. The Corinthians is an area, right? Corinth is a place. And Paul wrote this letter to them. Now, what comes before 1 Corinthians 13? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? That's what comes before 13. So listen, if you really, really want to know and understand your Bible, you've got to do some work. I hate to say it like that to you, but you can't just think that, I'm just going to, and although this is a good thing to do, I'm just going to pray and I'm going to ask God to reveal to me what this is, what it means. You know, maybe I've been a pastor now for 10 years. I haven't found that to work that way for me at all. I found that I have to do some work and some digging. And so let's just talk about first where this letter was going, the kind of place that it was going. How many know where Corinth is? Anybody know where Corinth is? Where it was in modern day? Anybody? Modern day Greece. Modern day Greece. Okay, and so let's look at this just for a little bit, because here's one thing. Let's start out with. Love is not a noun, is it? Love's not a noun. It's not a thing. It's not something that you can bring somebody over your house and go, hey, come on, I want to show you my trophy case. See, that's my bowling trophy. Look, that's my love right there. Right? You can't do that. Love is not a noun. It's not a thing. So love is a verb. So love isn't something that you have, of course. Love is something that you do. So if you're taking notes, first thing you want to remind yourself of is, I'm sure you already know, but love is something that we do. So this chapter is on this action to these people that lived in this place in Corinth, okay? Let's just talk about Corinth just a little bit, because here's what I find to be true. I find in our day and age, like people say, you know what? It's just hard living for God in our world today. Anybody ever say that? You ever hear somebody say that? It's just hard. You know what I mean? It's not, man, if I lived, 2,000 years ago, well, let's look at Corinth, okay? Corinth was an absolutely beautiful city in central Greece, and it was a coastal city. It was very prosperous. So Athens was the intellectual center, but Corinth was the business center for all of this part of the world. And it was heavily populated. So imagine, and here's how it got populated. Imagine San Francisco during the gold rush, right? Find out there's gold, man, all of a sudden everybody just rushes into this area. Kind of same thing happened here in Corinth. And Corinth was rebuilt by Julius Caesar in BC 86. So Julius Caesar didn't do anything halfway. I mean, rebuilt this city, and it was immaculate. It was also very strategic. And the reason why I say it's strategic is because two things came together. The Roman Empire, but also Greek culture. They came together and they merged here in Corinth. This is like the first time in history that these two come together in one spot. Now, the other thing about Corinth, it was how can I say it, but there's some kids. It was sexually saturated, okay? So if you look at the ruins of Corinth today, and you'll see a kind of a mountain there, and up on the mountain sat a temple. The temple was the temple of Aphrodite. Anybody know that name, Aphrodite? Aphrodite was the Greek god of love, fertility. And what historians tell us is they would have at the temple, right? The church, the temple up there, they would have 1,000 temple prostitutes. So this is in the church. And then they would come after kind of services, they would come down into Corinth, into the city. So it was very sexually saturated and charged. It was also the center of entertainment. It was trend setting. The taxes were high. Now, can you think of any place today that might resemble that? Right? I know you're all thinking Cleveland, probably not exactly Cleveland, right? But Corinth, probably you might call it the original. Everybody heard the term Sin City? Corinth was like the original Sin City. And so we have this book now, Corinthians. Paul writes this letter to this church in this place. So Romans probably is one of the most important books in the New Testament when it comes to like theology, right? probably why most people don't like to read it, because it's difficult, right? But this is probably the best book you can read in terms of how do I live for God in a world that we live in. And this isn't the first time the world's been like this, as we see here in Corinth. And so this is a good book to read, to say, how do I live a godly life in a world that just doesn't seem to emphasize God very much? Would you agree that's a pretty accurate statement, right? I'm not saying everybody's God. It's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying, sin-stained world, and you ever hear sermons like that before and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying this, like, no one seems to, and maybe I'm guilty too, no one seems to emphasize God at all. For some reason, it's a topic that we don't even want to talk about, right? You don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion, right? And so how do we live for God? How do we be a good Christ follower in our world today? Well, Paul's addressing this. Paul's saying, like right in the middle of this letter to the Corinthians, he then says, listen, I want to talk to you about like the most important thing. And he starts talking about love. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break this down into 3 parts, okay? Verses 1 through 3, we're going to talk about the priority of love. And then verses 4 through 7, we're going to talk about the meaning of love. And then hopefully, most importantly, we're going to talk about verses 8 through 13, the practice of love. So first, let's start out with the priority of love. If someone were to ask you, just think in your own mind, you don't have to shout anything out, what is the greatest purpose for life? What's the greatest purpose for life? And some people might say, well, it's success, or it's wealth or popularity or whatever. I think the Bible's pretty clear and lays out to us that the best use of your life, of my life, is love. The best use is love. Someone asked me one time about Freedom Life Center, and like, do you teach out of the Bible? And I go, well, I mean, what else would I teach out of? I'm not exactly sure what they meant, but as I read through this, I go, I find myself talking about love over and over and over again. Well, what about sin? I go, well, if I talk about love and I get people to love more, the sin's going to go away. If I talk about sin, right, you're gonna do the thing that you're constantly thinking about. As I say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. You go and do that, right? Talked about many times in here. I was playing golf with Pete, and he's down there, and he was in a sand trap on 18, right? I told this a couple weeks ago, but Green's up here, and he's down here, and all these people are sitting up there. I said, Pete, are you nervous? He goes, why? I go, well, those people sitting up there. He goes, well, I don't care what they think of me. I go, no, not that. Are you worried about coming out of the trap and not hitting the sand, hitting the ball, and hitting them? He goes, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, I guess I am now. Thanks for bringing that up, right? And as you start thinking about that and worrying about that, that's running through your mind, what happens? That's what you end up doing, right? And so focusing on the negative, in my opinion, is not the way to go. To keep telling you, don't do these things, don't do these things. Don't think of a clown right now. Don't think of a clown, don't think of a clown. Big hair, big feet, all different colors. Don't think of a clown. Don't think of them getting into a little Volkswagen Bug and piling in 12 clowns. Don't think of a clown. What are you thinking of? You're thinking of Cleveland again. No. You're thinking of a clown. Listen, if I say, when you leave here, don't do these things, don't do these things, don't do these things, you end up doing that. So what I want to put in your mind, in your heart, in your soul is love. Is love. Because I think it's the best thing, because God says about himself, he said that he is love. So I want to put God in you, I want to put love in you. So today we're going to talk about the priority of love to start out. The best use of life is love. He starts with 5 summary statements about love, 5, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at those 5. We're going to break those 5 down into 3 different categories, okay? That's how we're going to start this. So he starts out like this. Without love, you ready? All I say is ineffective. All I say is ineffective. Take a pastor, put him up in front, and if he doesn't have love for his congregation, if he doesn't have love for his community, if he doesn't have love for humanity, doesn't have love for the world, listen, it doesn't matter. Paul says, all you say without love is ineffective. It's ineffective. No matter how brilliant you think you are, right? No matter how great you prepared or whatever, he says, without love, it's ineffective. He said this, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, it's just a way of saying, if I say I'm speaking for God, right? That's what he's saying. We try to make more out of this. We try to say, tongue, what's this mean? No, he's trying to say, listen, even if you get up and you're proclaiming that you're talking for God, so listen, without love, watch what he says. It says this, you're only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. To me, that speaks of, it's just annoying. Have you ever run into a person who says they labels themselves a Christian, and you hear them talking, and you just get the idea like, man, this is more annoying than anything else, right? Because why? Because there's no foundation of love. Without love, all I say is ineffective. The next one is this. He says, all I know is incomplete. All I know. Now, we're going to group those two together. Say and know. So keep that in your mind. Say and know. He says this, if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, he says, but do not have love, he said, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. So although I think reading your Bible is great, studying your Bible is great, going to Bible studies is great, all that stuff is good, right? But he says this, he says, listen, it's incomplete without love. Without love. He says, even if you do that, if you study this day in and day out, and you do like I say, and you do research, and you look into extra biblical writings, and you study geography of the air, you do all that stuff, and he says this, but without love, all of that is nothing. The third is this then. All I believe, that's such a key word in the church today, isn't it? Believe. All I believe is insufficient. Listen, if I have the faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. See, there's a myth in the church today, and it's this. If you believe the right things, that's all that matters. You have to believe the right things. Oh, they tack on a few things. You have to believe, and then you have to confess that you believe it, and then you're good. Then you live however you want. Well, no, they won't say, no, you have to live however. Then you have to try to do good, you know what I mean? What if I just keep doing well, then probably you're backslidden. What does that mean? Well, it didn't take or something. I don't know. I don't even know how they explain it. But this idea of believing, what does he say? What does Paul say? If I have the faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. So that'll be the second category. First two are say and know, and then believe. The last two are this. All that I accomplish is insignificant without love. All that I accomplish. If I give all that I possess to the poor, but do not have love, I gain nothing. All that I accomplish is insignificant. Oh yeah, but we feed the poor, and we go here and we go there and we do all these things. But why do you do them? He says, without love, it's nothing. And the last one is this, all that I sacrifice is inadequate. Even if I give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. So what he's talking about is that love is the absolute first priority before anything else. Now, here's the thing. As I look at these things, I think throughout my own life and even my own ministry, I'm guilty of it, is what the church seems to be about teaching. I think 1 Corinthians 13 is the most known chapter and the least followed chapter of all the stuff in the New Testament, the least followed. So the church teaches this, because we have them. We have Bible studies, and you come and you dig in and you study, and right, you talk about theology. All I say, he says, and all I know, deep theology, right? Am I right? All I know about God, all I say about God. We're big about talking about God and knowing about God. And the church has always been pushing that. Know more, go here, do this Bible study. All of it's good, don't get me wrong, all of it's good. But we stop there because we say that's the important thing. Deep theology. And he says, but without love, all that's ineffective and incomplete. But the church pushes deep theology. The second thing the church pushes and emphasizes is powerful faith. We just have to have faith. You have to believe, right? Well, so someone says, well, you just need to do these things. Did you do these things? Yeah, but did you really believe? Well, yeah, I think I did. Well, you must not have, because if you really believed it would work. If you really had the faith. Paul says, listen, I don't care. Have the faith that'll move a mountain. If you don't have love, it's worthless. Basically, he said, listen, it's of no value. Not some value. Well, there's some redeeming. No, it's of no value. All I believe, powerful faith is insufficient. Insufficient. The third that we really emphasize in the church is visible commitment. Don't we? Visible commitment. What do I mean by that? Well, are you in church every Sunday? Do you, every time the doors are open, are you there? Now, I think those things are good, but what I'm saying is that we emphasize deep theology, powerful faith, visible commitment, right? He says, all I accomplish and all I sacrifice is insignificant and inadequate without love. But see, that's all we've known. Deep theology, powerful faith, visible commitment. We try hard to create people like that. People with deep theology. They just know lots about God. And they can go out and they can recite all the stuff the pastor said, right? They know all the different things to say. They can quote scripture. They have powerful faith. They believe, I believe. They attend church. They read their Bible. They go to Bible studies, visible commitment. Paul's saying, you can have all of that, my friend. You can have all of that. Without love, it's pointless. It's pointless. Okay, so then what is love then, right? Because that's what we want to ask. Okay, I get all that then. All that stuff, it's not that stuff is bad. It's just saying all that stuff void of love is pointless. Go ahead and do it. That's fine. But without love, it's of no value. All right, fine then. I have to do it with love. So what's love? So he goes on to that next, right? Talk about the meaning of love. The meaning of love. So he starts out positive, then he moves into the negative, then he goes back to the positive. So that's how we're going to break it down. So he starts out like this. Love is patient, love is kind. So it's patient and kind. 2 action words, right? 2 action words. Now, I'm just going to read through them. We'll go back and we'll talk about them as we go through the message. The next one, he talks about the negative. What I mean by that, the negative is kind of like, if it gets, how, anybody ever have termites in their house? So I've done construction, and I've gone and helped people redo things, and all of a sudden you take a board off and you say, you have termites. And as you start to remove more and more, you find the termites are just infill. You can't see it, really, can you? When you're living in the house, you can't see the termite damage. But it's there, it's under the surface. And it's kind of like these things Paul's saying are kind of like that. They're kind of like termites. Listen, if you let them in, if you let them get in, they're going to destroy, and you're not even going to know it's even happening. You're not going to know. So he says this, the negative. He said, love does not envy. It does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. Love does not dishonor others. Love is not self-seeking. The next one I think was put in there by accident. I don't think it's supposed to be in there. Love is not easily angered. I think that's probably the wrong place for that to be. Hey, it's interesting. So I was thinking about this thing about not getting angry, and I was thinking about my own self. And you ask my family, they'll tell you that I'm pretty easy, but every once in a while I just get, what's so funny back there? I just don't understand. But let me just tell you, here's what I say. So we all defend ourselves, right? I say, well, yeah, but I get over it fast, right? I get over it fast. It's over fast. But so is an atomic bomb, right? It dropped, boom, it's over fast. But the destruction that it leaves. And listen, so that's me. Some people blame that on, well, I'm Irish, what do you expect? Or I'm Italian. I don't know any Italians, so I'm not looking at anybody right now. Let me get a drink here. My throat's getting dry. So, where was I? Love is not easily angered. Let me read something to you. This is really interesting, because when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about other things that Paul has said. And so Paul said, we get angry at people, don't we, sometimes, right? Why do we get angry at them? Because they're doing something, and we deem, that's a polite word, we judge that to be bad or wrong, don't we? Then we get angry, no matter what it is. Watch what Paul says. This really upsets me. Paul said this, "As for myself, I do not care if I am judged by you or any human court. I do not even judge myself." He says this. Tell me if this isn't you. He says, "I know of no wrong I have done." What? I don't know of any wrong I've done. "But this does not make me right before the Lord. The Lord is the one who judged me. So do not judge before the right time. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light things that are now hidden in darkness, and will make known the secret purposes of people's hearts. Then God will praise each one." Wow. Think about what Paul is writing here. He says, I don't know anybody's motives. Isn't that what he's saying? I really don't know anybody's motives. But he goes further than that. He goes, this is what he says. This was what troubles me. He says, I actually don't even know my own. I actually don't even know my own motives. So he says, even if my conscience is clear, even if it's clear, he says this, it still doesn't make me innocent, because I don't even know my own motives. So Paul here is aware of his own inability to even judge himself correctly. Listen, you don't think this is true. I read this study that was done by this Yale professor, and they were studying, they were looking at how we make choices and so forth, right? Or not even just choices, but this particular thing was about a math problem. And so they took people in these different, the different political camps, right? And they had this math problem they had to do. Well, when they did a math problem, it was just a benign thing, they were able to get it right. But when they put a math problem and the answer, the outcome, was something that went contrary, the result was contrary to their political view, guess what? Over and over and over again, they got the problem wrong. They got it wrong. And we're not talking about people that aren't good in math. As a matter of fact, the better they were at math, the more chances they were to get it wrong. The reason why I say I'm talking about our bias, right? How many of you in here have a bias in somewhere? We all have a bias. And that bias clouds us, right? And listen, this is all under just this one point about anger, about don't get angry. So we all have this bias, and we think we know, and we judge others, and we see them, and we think we understand. And Paul says, the reality is, I can't even judge myself. I don't even know my own motives. I'm going to let God sort that out. So love does not easily anger. Love keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil. See, all of these things are relationship killers, aren't they? They're all relationship killers. And then he goes back to the positive. He says this, love rejoices with the truth. I love that word rejoices. I'm challenged by the word rejoices. Let me ask you, is your house fun? In your house, is it fun? Is there laughter in your house? That's the rejoice, that's what it is. Is it lighthearted? Love rejoices with the truth. Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And then when all of this above is true, when all that's true, the end says this, love never fails. Love never fails. Okay, let's go. We have 10 minutes left. Let's talk about the practice of love. The practice of love. You know, all of us, every one of us, we know what we know, we believe what we believe, we think what we think is because we've been told and we've been conditioned. Right? It's just true. And I think we're seeing more and more and more in our culture today how media and how Hollywood has manipulated us. And in this area, I think more than any other, on what love is. What love is. Michelle loves to watch good love stories, you know. It's funny, this happened a long time ago. I remember that movie, Bridges of Madison County, with Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep. You remember that? I remember watching it with Michelle. And they show the beginning of the movie, they show Meryl Streep in the house, and her husband comes in. They had this screen door. There was no spring on it, or the spring, it was just slammed shut. Bang, it would hit. And every time it did, she cringed. And he'd walk in and have a rainy coat on, and there'd be water everywhere. And so they're setting you up. Then her husband goes away for a while, and Clint Eastwood comes into this town, and he's taking pictures of all the bridges, and they kind of, find each other, and he comes in. He comes in the house one day. I remember this vividly. Comes in the house, and the door's starting to close, and they show his hand go back and catch the door, and she's waiting for it to hit, and it doesn't hit, right? And then he shakes his coat off outside. Are you getting what I'm saying? All this stuff, and I remember thinking. I said to Michelle, Michelle, who do you want Clint Eastwood to be with? I mean, who do you want Meryl Streep to be with in this movie? It's the same as all of us did. Who? Clint Eastwood. Why? Well, it's this romance, and it's all this, right? I think we're being manipulated. And we're being manipulated and told what love is. In the movies, we learn this. Love is how you make me feel. Love is how you make me feel. Kind of this, it's really just a veiled selfishness, right? Right? How you make me feel. It's all about me, and I want to feel good. When the Bible talks about real love, it uses words like this. This is the first word. Real love serves. Serves. That's what real love does. Real love is not self-seeking, right? The world doesn't revolve around you. Real love serves. It serves. Genuine love, let me tell you something. Genuine love always shows up in service. It always shows up in service. Let me tell you a story. when a number of years ago that there was a big storm here, and I forget, we were somewhere watching a football game or whatever, I think it was, and man, the snow was piling up and piling up and piling up, and I got a call from my sister about her in-laws, my brother-in-law Carrie, that they were, I think they lived over in Mount Vernon, over where I grew up, and they were worried about them. They were without power and everything, and so I had a 4-wheel drive truck, and I drove all the way over there. Really, the roads were just terrible. And up there drive, I mean, it was deep. Get up there and knock on the door, and he came downstairs, opened the door. I think he had on every piece of clothing that they owned. And his wife, Carrie's mom, she wasn't well to begin with, but you know what? He was there taking care of her. And I said, why don't you guys come with me? No, Jeff, we're okay. We're good. I said, just come with me. Let me just take you to a hotel. No, I got her all taken care of. She's got all clothes on, blankets on, and we're good. We're good. I said, but wouldn't you be more comfortable? No, we're okay. He was taking care of his wife. And we see this all the time, don't we? We see of spouses with their spouse, getting sick and aging, and they're there just, to the very end. Real love, not Hollywood love. Real love serves. And this kind of service is service that you're not waiting for anything to come in return. It's completely selfless. Galatians 5:13 says this, serve one another in love. And then in John 13:34-35 says this, as I have loved you, and what did Jesus say? I didn't come to be served. I came to serve. As I have loved you, how have I loved you? I've loved you by serving you. As I have loved you, you must love one another. And then he says this amazing thing. He says, by what? By loving one another. By this, all men will know that you're my disciple, that you follow me. Not about what you believe about me, because what they believe about him, they believed the wrong things about him, didn't they? Didn't they? They believed the wrong things. They thought he's coming, he's going to overthrow Rome, he's going to take over, right? We're going to have this big kingdom here. They were wrong about their belief in him. But he didn't say, you have to believe the right things about me. You have to love like I did, serve like I did. And that's how people are going to know that you're my disciple. That you love one another. In the movies, we learn that love it's an emotion. It's an emotion, again, that we feel. I was going to show this clip, but I decided not to. But it's from The Bachelorette. I never watched it, but no, I'm telling. Well, I've accidentally watched it. I didn't do it on purpose. And so she was interviewing this guy, which I get. And listen, I'm not here to bring guilt on anybody for divorce. I'm not at all. That's not what I'm about. If you know me, you already know that. But he was in a predicament because he was saying, she said that you were divorced, and he said, yeah, I was divorced, and she said, well, what happened? Well, I heard this term. We fell out of love. We fell out of love. And so she was kind of pressing him a little bit, you know what I mean? And well, how do you know that, of course no one knows, right? How do you know it won't happen again? How do you know this? How do you know that? He said, well, here's the thing. Here's something that you need to know about me. When I make a commitment, it's a commitment for life, and I never give up. And I thought, wait a minute. You just said, he said, I'm looking for just a beautiful, fun, interesting woman, and that's what she was, and that's what I'm looking for. But you just, he's backpedaling, trying to understand this thing, and all along, I think it's because, now I don't know their whole situation, but we're sold this idea of what love is, of what it is. It's not a feeling. Let me tell you something. Real love, you ready for the second word? Real love sustains. Sustains. Okay, real love is not about a feeling, it's about faithfulness. It's about faithfulness. Verse 7, about love. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Sustains. Wouldn't you agree with that? Love sustains. Those always in there is about faithfulness. About faithfulness. Again, let me just say it again. It is not an emotion that you feel. It's an action that you do. And when you do the action enough times, the feeling will come. That's why people wonder how do arranged marriages work? Like in India and Africa. How do they work? Well, they work because they're together and they love one another by this kind of love, doing, and then what follows that? The emotion follows. And then they're together and I really love this person. I really have this, now I have this feeling that goes along with all the action that I've been doing. We flip it around the other way. We start with a feeling. And Paul's saying, no, it's not that. Love is not emotion. Here's the thing. If you want to remember something from today, if you're not taking notes, remember this. Love is not an emotion you feel. Love is a state that you create. State that you create. If you say, well, I live in an unloving home, well, change it. Change that state. Create a loving environment in the home. Listen, friends, I'm just here to tell you, emotions are a bad foundation for a marriage. Emotions. If it's built on emotions, how many of you, your emotions change hourly? Every woman should, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Every person should raise their hand. I'm just kidding, Tracy. Tracy, give me a heck later on. Hey, let me ask you, here's what you need to do. Do you have a trusted advisor? Do you? I hope you do. Hope there's someone that you can go to, right? Someone you can go to that you absolutely trust. Like you think, if I ask them, I have a friend down in Texas, and he just, it's a long story, but for 7 years he hasn't been in the pastoring or anything for a while. He's back in the church, and he preached for the first time. He said, Jeff, I'd like you to listen to the message. I'd like you to critique it for me. You know why? Because he knows he could trust me. Because he knows how much I love him. He knows how much I am for him and not against him. He knows how much I want him to succeed. So he can trust me, right, with that. And if I come back and say, well, Jeff, I made me feel like this or that or whatever, you go, okay, thank you for that, right? I mean, someone like that. Because if you have a trusted advisor, here's some questions. I want you to write these down somewhere. I want you to ask your trusted advisor. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. First question is this. Ask this. Go along with of the meaning of love. Ask somebody, am I harsh? Am I harsh? Because the Bible says love is patient and kind. So ask your trusted advisor, am I harsh? Maybe you'll hear, no, you're actually not harsh. That's a good thing. Or you might hear, if I'm honest, there are times when you can be harsh to people. It's just the truth. Right? And you want to know the truth, right? You want to know the truth about you. And it's hard for you to discern that truth on your own, so you need a trusted advisor. Am I harsh? You know what? You can be harsh sometimes, Jeff. Okay. Like when can I be harsh? And you let them explain it to you when you're harsh. Number 2 is this. If you didn't like that one, you're not going to like this one. Do I always have to win? Me and Tracy. Do I always have to win? See, it says this is what it says about love. Love doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. Am I always right? Thank you. Only when I'm up here. Do I have a hard time saying, I was wrong? Do you have a hard time saying, I'm really sorry. I did that bad. I was just wrong there. Can you say that easily? Or those words, do they get stuck in your throat? You can't say them. Ask your trusted advisor. Am I the kind of person that always has to win? Third, am I self-centered? Am I self-centered? Do I always have to have my way? Does it have to be the way that I want it to be? See, it says this, love does not dishonor others, and it's not self-seeking. Does the conversation always have to be about you? If it's somewhere else, you have to steer it around back to you somehow. Do I have to have things my way? Well, yeah, I do, but it's just because my ways are best. I'm here like that. That's the reason why I want to do it that way. It's just the best way. We're driving. Michelle said, why don't you go that way? Because I'm going this way, but this way's better. Why is that way better? Because that's the way I go. And I say the same thing, right? I go this way. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing it like that? Am I self-centered? How about this one? Number 4. Do I have a short fuse? Short fuse. Somebody going, ooh, I got it by with that one. No, wait a minute, I'm not done. Do I have a short fuse or a long memory? Do I have a short fuse or a long memory? Love is not easily angered. So that's short fuse, right? Love's not easily angered, it's short fuse. And long memory, right? Love keeps no record of wrong. Which one are you? You blow up easily? Or do you go, yeah, 7 years ago when you... It's not easily angered, keeps no record of wrong. Number 5 is this, am I cynical? Am I cynical? It's easy to be cynical in our world today, I'll just admit. But I have to remember that Corinth was no different. Easy to be cynical then too. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So I dare you to do this. I didn't see too many people write these questions down, so you probably were not going to do it, but that's okay. Love serves, love sustains. And I think answering these questions is going to help you in that area. And the last one, this last thing that Hollywood talks about, it's like a sensation. It's a sensation that you feel. And the truth is this, real love sacrifices. Philippians 2:3 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. I always had trouble with this scripture. Because I used to think it meant, it says in humility, consider others, and it used this term, and I never really dug too deep, but better than yourself. And I really have to think people that are better than me. But the idea, what it's saying is just put other people first. Don't always put yourself first. That's sacrifice. I think of a mother with her kids, right? Young kids. She sacrifices her sleep, right? Her own meals, her own life, everything for the children. You know why? Because that's a mother's love. And I think it just continues on. My friend Roger in Ohio, he asked his mother one time, Roger's older than I am. He's probably 38. And so he asked his mother one time, what's been the most surprising thing about motherhood? Ben, why don't you come on up? And she said this, it's that you never stop being a mother. You never stop being a mother. How many of you found that to be true of your mom? No matter how old you are, my mother still mothers me. That's what moms do. Because that's a genuine love. Because of sacrifices. That's what he's saying, this, is that love sacrifices. When you put someone else's needs above yours, and you don't want to, Mark 10:45 says this, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And he gave his life for that. Literally gave his life. 1 John 4:19 says this, we love We love because he first loved us. Never think that you're doing God a favor. You're doing yourself a favor by loving God. Never think you're doing God a favor. He first loved you. No matter where you were in your idea of who he is or what he's like or whatever, he loved you. And in Corinthians 13:13 it says this, and now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest is love. And love. Friend, the best use of your life is love.